Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Batwoman Season 2 review series. And today I am going to be talking about episode 14 and Justice for All, which I have just finished watching earlier. And this episode had a couple of little clunkers in terms of the execution of dialogue, but overall I thought this was pretty good and solid, and the way it ended with a huge jaw-dropping cliffhanger really made up for this, which I'll get into in a moment. And this episode pretty much picks up where we left off at the end of episode 13, where we saw Alice was abducted by Black Mask, and we see that she done some facial construction work for Serkei, who is the quote-unquote daughter of Black Mask, and it was revealed that Serkei is really Kate Kane, who, as we all know, had a horrific accident in a plane crash at the beginning of Season 2, and she was declared dead. But it turns out now that she's not only alive and well, but she is actually now brainwashed into thinking she's Black Mask's daughter. So that was a really good way to end episode 13 and help set up this episode, which is episode 14. And overall, as I said, a couple of little clunkers in the dialogue, but by and large this was pretty good. And also in this episode we start to see other people are now being affected by the snake bite, and we start to see a more sinister side to the crows. So there was plenty of other things going on, and we also see Alice is desperate to try and get Kate Kane back to normal. So, as I said, this episode had a lot going for it, and there was a couple of little moments that made me cringe in terms of the dialogue. Overall, this was a pretty good episode. So, let's get right into it. Let's talk about episode 14 and Justice for All. So we see Alice is still shocked that Serkei is really Kate Kane, although Serkei doesn't really believe it herself. And Cyanosis is happy with Alice's face swapping work and grants her freedom, and Alice reluctantly leaves. Alice goes to Enigma and tortures her for not telling her about Kate, and Enigma tells her to bring an object of Kate's that could potentially trigger a memory that may restore her back to normal. Alice goes back down to the abandoned train car and grabs some of Kate's childhood mementos, only to discover Ocean has been hiding there for the past 2 days. She eventually tells him that Kate is alive, and they hug. Ocean and Alice visit Enigma and bring her the keys to Kate's old motorcycle. Enigma tells Alice that bringing Kate's memories back might not go as well as she thinks, and that she needs a trigger word in order to fully unlock Kate's memories. But Ocean stabs her before she can provide it. Ocean declares his love for Alice and tells her that he's jealous of Alice's fascination with Kate Kane. We then see Batwoman breaks up a false-faced drug deal and accidentally stumbles across a cannibal woman in an abandoned church. The next day, Ryan bartends at a fundraiser event for the community centre, and Luke shows her another separate case of cannibalism in Gotham, but Ryan is afraid to look into it. We also see Ryan flirts with Imani, the community centre organiser she's been seeing, and she worries that she's not able to pull off dating her and being Batwoman at the same time. Luke Fox says that's the price for paying a double life. You've got to make a choice, and you've got to try and balance the two personas. Police officers show up to the bar with a noise complaint, and they ultimately arrest Ryan and Luke after Ryan touches one of the cops. Sophie shows up after the raid and alleges that one of the cops is falsifying his reports, and he also acts antagonistic towards her, and she also ends up in jail as well. In jail, Ryan and Luke debate about how either of them should have responded to the situation, just as Sophie gets thrown into the cell with them. They each have a different outlook on the experience, especially due to their histories of growing up in Gotham. Ryan initially calls out Luke for not speaking up during the ordeal, and Sophie for benefiting from the establishment as a crow, but they all eventually reconcile and acknowledge each other's life experiences. A snakebiter user begins to turn possessed and attacks a woman in the street, threatening to eat her face, kind of like Hannibal Lecter. Yuck. A police officer shows up, but the other snakebite cannibals begin to attack him as well. Meanwhile, Mary tends to Jacob in her hospital, and she wants him to tell her the truth about his snakebite addiction. A man named Richard makes his way to Mary's clinic and handcuffs himself to a bed, asking for help so he doesn't eat anyone. Richard reveals that he took a new version of snakebite and that he hoped he'd hallucinate his dead wife. More of the cannibal victims make their way to Mary's hospital. Eventually, the cannibal situation in Gotham gets worse and the bat signal is turned on. Imani shows up to the jail and helps the three of them get out, but Ryan makes an excuse for why she can't spend time with her. Mary suggests that the cannibal attacks are people literally craving other people's memories, and then she figures out a way to reverse the effects. Meanwhile, Sophie goes back to the Crows' headquarters, and Tavaroff and the other Crows initially belittle her but listen to her in the end. Luke gives Ryan a briefcase filled with vials, with her having to inject each of the cannibals with the antidote individually. As Batwoman, we see her fighting off the cannibals and try to administer the antidote, but Tararoff and the Crows arrive and kill them all against Sophie's orders. As Mary and Jacob help the patients in the hospital, Mary recognizes that Jake also took the snake bite in order to get another chance to be with Kate and Beth, but she calls him out for fracturing her own relationship in the process. Richard begins to eat his own hand out of the handcuffs and leaves the hospital attacking a police officer until Batwoman injects him with the antidote. Ryan, Luke, and Sophie meet up at the bar, and Sophie tells them that she's decided to leave the Crows after seeing the corruption herself firsthand. They all each raise a glass and have a toast for different minds, but with the same heart. Ryan also has drinks with Imani, and she admits that she hasn't been entirely honest with her and reluctantly breaks up with her. Luke walks to his car and finds the car being hijacked by Eli, the same guy who they shared a cell with earlier in the episode. The Crows show up and Eli blames Luke for the carjacking. Tararoff mistakes Luke's hand for a gun and shoots him, and he collapses to the ground, ending the episode on a massive cliffhanger. Overall, aside from a couple of little clunkers in the dialogue, this was by and large a pretty good solid episode, highly enjoyable, and the fact that Sophie has now quit the Crows is a real game changer, so it's going to be interesting to see where she goes from here. And Luke being shot at the end, I did not see coming. I really wasn't expecting that, and I'm really hoping that they don't kill him off, because Luke Fox has so far been a staple part of the Batwoman series ever since it started, and he's been a huge part of all the tech, and it'll be a real damn shame to see him get killed off, because I'm still hoping that we'll get to see him suit up and become Batwing. But time will tell, really. So that's it from me. I'm going to wrap up this review now. What did you think of episode 14? Did you enjoy it? What is your thoughts on Sophie quitting the Crows? Do you think she'll now officially join Batwoman's team and help them fight crime against the False Face Society? And also, what about Luke Fox being shot? Do you think he'll survive, or do you think there is a possibility that he might get killed off? And also, what about Kate Kane? Do you think Alice has a chance at restoring her memories and bringing her back to her old self? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Batwoman Season 2 review series, where I'll be talking about episode 15, which I'm very much looking forward to talking about, especially after the way this episode ended. So until next time, take care everybody and stay safe, and once again, thanks for listening.